Hello, just Duncan again, doing the next section of our little series on sidesword. Just taking 5 minutes out of my normal day to cover the next little section. So, what I said we'd be looking at this week is we're going to be looking at the 3 basic thrusts that you have in sidesword. So we've already looked at a lot of the cuts, scollambratos, ridoppios, tondos, all of this kind of stuff we've talked about a couple of weeks ago. And last week we were talking about our parries, whether they are across, up, and voiding backwards. But what we want to look at today is thrusts. So really there are 3 primary thrusts that are used in sidesword. One of them we're kind of already slightly familiar with, because from this alicorno position, which we've talked about before, this upwards position, if I literally just thrust forward, that becomes the first of our thrusting attacks. And that can be delivered just downward thrust with the arm, a bit of body rotation, or it can be done with a step in order to actually deliver a thrust. And that's called an imbricata, which is a downwards cutting thrust coming down into my opponent from the high line. The other 2 that are primarily used is the stoccata, which is delivered, it gets very technical on what is a stoccata and what's an imbricata. This is my take on it, which is basically if it starts from this inside hip, and it's going to come out and forward palm down. So from here, my thrust comes out, and that is delivered palm down into my opponent. Naturally, it rises from that, talked about our 5 points before, point at the hip, coming up to the point of the shoulder as I deliver that thrust in there. And I'll deliver that normally on a gran passo with a kind of half lunge forward into my opponent. So that's the second one. And then the third one we tend to look at is the punta reversi, which is delivered from the porta di ferro position. So I'm across the body this time. And as I deliver it, I push out and deliver it as a palm up attack. So from here, it comes out, palm up. And again, that'll be delivered on a gran passo and back to guard again. So those are really the 3 thrusts that we have, the 3 that we use. I think originally what we had was actually 4, which was the imbricata, the stoccata coming more upwards, and then the punta and the punta reversi. However, this stoccata coming up, not a particularly useful thrust. It's very difficult to make work. So what you tend to find is that stoccata has become this outwards edge cut and the punta reversi across the body. So your punta reversi, your your stoccata rather, and your imbricata coming in from the top. Now if you look at the work of Dall'Agocchie, he has a recovery from each of these, and I think it's worth putting those into context as well, along with the thrust, so that you know the recovery from it. So when we're looking at a thrust from an imbricata, we start in our alicorno, we deliver the thrust, and then that's always covered by a scollambrato into porta di ferro. And that's literally just in case I have missed or not killed and they're coming back for the attack, I have something to clear that line and protect myself. As you can see, that sword covers all of my major points and protects me. So from here I would deliver my my thrust, and then parry across automatically afterwards to cover myself. If I'm delivering either of the other 2, the stoccata or the punta reversi, they're delivered on this gran passo, which leaves me planted a bit forward, not as much as a modern day lunge, but I'm still temporarily reversing all of my force going forward to bring it back. So what you actually find is you get quite large recoveries where he actually goes into a void straight from that gran passo position. So I will lunge to here and then void back as I cover right the way. So I recover, overcommit, over-recover, and then back to guard. So from here, there would be my attack, and then my over-recovery all the way back here before coming back to guard. And if I'm punta reversi, that's still the same. So I'm going to deliver my punta reversi, but this time the parry just goes to the other side. And it's just quite naturally from here, turning the hand over and cutting. That gives me my cover as I get back out of distance before I return to guard. So those 3 thrusts provide all of the thrusting that we're going to need, apart from 2 that we're going to talk about next week, because those 2 thrusts are actually counter thrusts that make up the 4th of our basic parries. is a counter thrust. So now we've looked at thrust this week, we'll look at counter thrust next week, and hopefully by that point you're starting to get a feel for how side sword all fits together. So have a great week, and I'll catch you next time.